Welcome back to the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast. I'm Zach Miller, and with me, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Martin Cook.
Hello, everyone.
First off, we want to thank you for making last week's Easter special our very first video to reach over 300 views. We, I'm not going to say we wouldn't be here without you because we'd just be doing the same shit, talking to each other about film, but we really appreciate the support for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And so, because of that, we're now changing format. We're going to be an all Easter podcast because it's obviously what people want. No.
But speaking of Easter, as I'm sure most of you know, Pope Francis died on Easter Sunday, actually. Fear not, though, for he has rejoined his heavenly Father in the kingdom of Christ, or something to that effect. Anyway, an interesting knock-on effect is that streams of the Netflix films Conclave and The Two Popes have seen a incredibly massive spike in viewership. According to Variety, streams of Conclave have gone up over 300%, and The Two Popes have seen an almost 500% spike.
Yes, because we will, of course, be having a papal turnover like they had in the two popes and a papal conclave. That obviously the movie Conclave is all about. So that's obviously sad that Pope Francis died. I'm not a Catholic. Neither of us are Catholics. But uh, but he seemed like the kind of pope who was trying to make some good changes. Obviously, a lot of criticisms can be lobbed at people in positions of power, but I think it's a sad moment. But it's been a crazy week. So we had the Pope dying. There's so much going on this week. We got NBA and NHL playoffs. WrestleMania was last weekend. There's a Canadian election coming up on Tuesday, federal election that's going to be huge. First episodes of Andor just dropped of the second season, and the final season of Netflix's You just came on Netflix. And of course, now, yeah, we've got a papal conclave coming up. So busy times in the world, aside from all the, awful and horrible things that just generally go on in the world every day.
And we have a new segment that we're going to start doing it during every podcast, which is a box office review and a box office preview. We're going to be talking about the films that did the best financially over the past week and preview some of the new movies that are coming out each week. So, Martin, you want to lead us off with the last week's box office?
Sure. So I'm actually going to take there's two ways to look at last week because obviously it was Easter weekend, so it's a long weekend. So for the weekend totals, I'm going to take a look at the Easter long weekend totals, which obviously add an extra day than they would otherwise. So number one was a movie that we're going to talk about this week, and that is Sinners, which had a $55.8 million opening weekend and currently has made over 87 million worldwide. Number two, still kicking ass at the box office, is a Minecraft movie, which brought in another 46.2 million on the weekend. It's now over 729 million worldwide. Third was King of Kings, a movie we talked about last week in our Easter episode, which made 19.7 million on the weekend, now over 53 million. And fourth and fifth were two movies in their second weekends: The Amateur, starring Rami Malek, and Warfare. And yeah, Amateur brought in about 7.8, Warfare brought in about 4.9 for the Easter weekend.
Yeah, so not really a huge weekend for the box office, but we're kind of in that uh kind of limbo period between award season and summer blockbuster season. But yeah, Sinners was really impressive and well deserved, as we will talk about in depth at a later time during this podcast.
Yeah, and
So,
and Minecraft just continues to be a juggernaut. And King of Kings, I think the producers of King of Kings are probably pretty happy with their box office haul, considering that it's a very small new production company, faith-based production company that came out with that one. So, yeah, the top three I think are happy. The Amateur and Warfare probably haven't made as much as the filmmakers would like. Certainly not Warfare, which sadly is only at about 18.7 million worldwide at this point.
Mm, yeah. So, what's coming up this week? We have The Accountant 2, which is a Ben Affleck movie and it's obviously a sequel. And he plays an autistic accountant that moonlights as a hitman.
The first one
Uh,
was watchable, I thought.
Four out of these five movies come out on actually today as no tomorrow as we're recording this April 25th. Cheech and Chong's last movie is coming out. It's a Cheech and Chong movie, but it's the last one. Basically.
I would imagine. I mean, I can't believe these guys are still making movies.
Then we have On Swift Horses. It's a romantic drama starring Twisters, Daisy Edgar Jones, Heartthrob, Jacob Elordi, and our boy Will Poulter, who's having a hell of a past couple months, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have Until Dawn, a horror movie based on the 2015 video game, which means it'll probably suck. But the big one that's coming out on May 2nd is Marvel's Thunderbolts. And it's probably the first Marvel movie that I've been even remotely excited to see in quite some time.
Yeah, I think it looks fun, actually.
Yeah,
I agree. And it's not really the big property that people might expect from Marvel, but the previews for it, the interaction between the characters just looks like it's a lot of fun and kind of getting back to what Marvel was known for in the early stages of the MCU. So I hope so. I hope it's not just false advertising. I don't want, I'm long past the time where I'm getting my hopes up for MCU movies, but I'm cautiously optimistic that this could at least be fun.
yeah, not to do a deep dive into the MCU at this point, but yeah, it's they've become so self-serious over the past couple movies and it's nice to see him just like getting back to having fun because that was really what made Marvel and
Yeah.
they branched out and have different character interactions. It always comes down to character. So yeah, I'm glad Thunderbolts is looking pretty good. But you have some bad news.
Yeah, so yeah, it's time to get into some film and movie industry news, and well, film industry because the first thing is about the TV industry, and a recent report by it's just bad news all around in Hollywood these days, unfortunately. A recent report by the Writers Guild of America states that TV writing jobs dropped by 42% in the 2023-2024 season. So that's after the strikes, where a big thing was trying to protect jobs. Obviously, that didn't unfortunately work out too well. And that's on top of just a drop in film productions as well. Like in Hollywood, filming in Los Angeles dropped by 22% in the first quarter of 2025. Now, part of that is due to productions moving elsewhere because of tax incentives,
Sure.
Georgia, Texas, Canada. But a big part is also just a general drop in the number of films being produced each year. Like on Box Office Mojo, it lists 592 theatrical releases in 2024, and that's still way down from pre-pandemic peaks of over 900 a year. So, film and TV production is just not very good. It's not a good time to be looking for jobs in the film industry these days, unfortunately.
But so today our topic is a filmmaker spotlight, and we're going to be doing a series of these down the road, not necessarily scheduled or even planned who we're going to do. But since Sinners came out this week, we decided we're going to do a just whole career retrospective on Ryan Coogler. And he is one of the best and frankly one of the most important filmmakers of our age.
Definitely.
Yes, he of course he's a brilliant writer and director, but I mean, just to address the elephant in the room, and I hate that this has to be said, but he's also one of the few black auteurs that Hollywood has ever produced. So, Martin, do you want to just tell us a little about Ryan Coogler?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, just a short bio before we get into some of the other things about his filmography and everything else. So he was born May 23rd, 1986 in Oakland, and he grew up in the Bay Area. He's really a Bay Area guy. And he was actually a pretty good football player growing up. He was a wide receiver, and he went to college first on a football scholarship, which is kind of cool. And just a little side note, NFL draft is going on as we as we record this. We waited until both our teams picked before we started recording, but Coogler is friends with Marshawn Lynch because they actually grew up playing against each other in the Bay Area,
That does not
which is
surprise me at all. Yeah.
no, it really doesn't. But that's also very cool. So I
Yeah.
can't wait for a time for Marshawn Lynch to show up in a Coogler film at some point. But anyway, in college, when Coogler went to college, the football guys were encouraged to take a creative writing course. I don't know, maybe this cool, maybe it was one of these things where they thought it'd be an easy credit. But Coogler's teacher thought that his writing was really good, and he sort of encouraged him to take up screenwriting because he thought it was very visual. So after graduating from Sacramento State, he was accepted to a filmmaking master's degree at USC, and that's really where his career took off. He married his wife, Zinzi Evans, in 2016. They have two kids. They met when they were 13 or 14. It's one of these like friends and then college sweethearts. And now basically they're a Hollywood power couple because she
Mm.
works closely with him and is an executive producer of his production company. She has a degree in communicative disorders and worked as a sign language interpreter before kind of going full time into producing with him. And Coogler says, this is kind of cute that she supported him forever. They've known each other since they were kids. And when he was a broke student just getting into film, she bought him his first copy of Final Draft, which for anybody who
Oh,
doesn't know
awesome.
is the most popular screenwriting software out there. So
That is so
it's
cool.
yeah, it's cool. They're just sort of this great supportive power couple. And Coogler has been nominated for two Oscars so far. Although interestingly enough, neither of them for actual like writing or directing, which is what he's most known for. One of them was for original song for the song "Lift Me Up" from Wakanda Forever, that he was
Oh,
nominated with Göransson and Rihanna. Ludwig Göransson, the composer, and Rihanna. I guess he helped compose that song. And the other was as a producer, and we'll go into next what his production company is, for Judas and the Black Messiah, where the movie was nominated for Best Picture. So yeah, two Oscar nominations, but not quite the ones you would expect.
hmm yeah. And speaking of his production company, in 2021, Coogler and his wife, as you just said, Zizi, founded Proximity Media, which is a multimedia production company. They're not just film oriented, as you said. They do soundtracks and songs. The first film they produced, as you just said, was Judas and the Black Messiah. Got his first Oscar nom there, and they went on to produce the Space Jam sequel. No, no Oscar noms there,
No.
and Creed 3. The
Yeah.
company also produced the soundtracks for both films. They produced a few docs as well, including Steph Curry, Underrated, Homeroom, and Anthem. So Coogler and Co. have a lot of irons and a lot of fires. He's definitely diversifying his brand and making sure that his voice is heard across a whole plethora of mediums. And like many directors, he frequently works with a lot of the same people in his projects.
Yeah, so collaborations are really big for him. It's funny that you mentioned that he did a documentary on Steph Curry. It makes sense that he's a total Bay Area guy if he's
Hmm
doing docs on Steph Curry. But also, people who are executives at Proximity Media are a guy named Zev Ohanian, who is a filmmaker known for Searching, Missing, writer producer. I don't know if anybody's remembers those. They were basically films that were all took place kind of within windows on a computer screen. And Ludwig Göransson is also an executive. So his two biggest collaborations. Let's talk about two because he has mentioned how important collaborations are to him, and he says that this comes from his time playing football. Especially as a wide receiver, you need to rely on somebody else to get you the ball, and that's kind of how he thinks about filmmaking as really a team effort, which is
Interesting. Yeah.
very refreshing for now quite famous and successful director and producer that he doesn't think it's just all about him. It's very nice to hear that. So obviously his two most famous collaborations are Michael B. Jordan, who he first met when he was doing the casting for Fruitvale Station, movie we'll talk about in a second. And so Jordan had obviously been in a few things before that, notably the first season of The Wire. Where Wallace at, String? Where Wallace at? And a couple of seasons of Friday Night Lights. But when Coogler met him, they just had this instant connection. But Kugler also sort of saw, oh no, he can be a star, and he said right to him, look, I believe in you. I believe you can be a star. And they obviously that mutual respect and support. They've worked together ever since. So he's been in every one of Kugler's feature films. A small role in Wakanda Forever, but he made up for it by playing two characters in Sinners. So there you go.
Exactly.
And the other big collaboration he's known for is with the composer Ludwig Göransson. And his friendship and collaboration with Coogler actually goes back farther than Michael B. Jordan's, because Göransson and Coogler were friends in film school at USC. And Göransson even scored his first short films that he did there, and has scored every one of his five feature films as well. So that's really cool that he's found people that he really likes to work with, and as I said, it's all this sort of teamwork ethos that he has.
Yeah, because I'm sure I've heard of Ludwig Göransson, but of course he came into like the public discourse when he won the Oscar for Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
But yeah, just
Mm.
on the
Well,
surface,
he, he also won for Black Panther, though.
he won the Oscar.
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
But yeah, on the surface, it would seem like Ludwig Göransson and Ryan Coogler would seem like odd bedfellows,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
because one's
One
like a
guy's from Sweden, the other
yeah,
guy's from Oakland. Yeah.
just like a Nordic blonde with long hair, and yeah, this black dude from Oakland. But that's it's a beautiful story
It
that
really
they
is.
that they've
Yeah.
had this relationship for that long. But
Yes, I was just checking to make sure, and yes, he did win the Oscar for Black Panther as well. I just was checking to make sure that I wasn't wrong and he wasn't just nominated. So yeah, Goranson's already got two Oscars, which is pretty cool.
damn,
Yeah.
hell yeah, good for him. So, like all filmmakers, Coogler likes to revisit certain themes. Obviously, a main one is elevating the Black experience and making all of his characters three-dimensional, like lived-in human beings rather than just token stock characters, which even some Black directors kind of fall into that
Hmm.
pitfall in some points. But honestly, this shouldn't even be an issue in 2025, but it seems to be still a glaring issue. So, what else?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he definitely talks, a lot of his work is grounded in the American experience. And as we see when we start getting into his filmography, I don't know, I had a hard time with that word. Um, he started with things that were local and immediate to him. I've mentioned a million times now that he's a Bay Area guy, and his shorts and even Fruitvale Station, it was really about stuff that was going on in his hometown. And so I think that's important. A lot of his films, a lot of the themes also seem to be specifically about Black ownership. So,
Mm,
Black ownership of culture, Black ownership of their own creative outputs. And we'll get into it when we get into Sinners and the deal that he made to make Sinners, which is really cool with Warner Brothers. But he that is a big theme for him as well, I think, is just ownership and taking charge of culture for Black people in America, which is obviously extremely important. As you say,
yeah,
it's not just about throwing out their stereotypical Black characters. It's really about taking charge of the the culture, but also taking charge of the message themselves.
yeah, and even in Black Panther, I mean, we can get into this, but just since you brought that up, and it's a salient point, he goes back to Oakland at the very end of Black Panther, and he makes that like community center, and the very last line of Black Panther is some kid from Oakland being like, "Who are you?" and cut.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool. So we're gonna get into. He's only done 5 features, so we're gonna have time to cover all 5 of these, and including his shorts. But drink break.
Woohoo! Yeah, it's time for a break.
All right, this one is called The Heart of Wakanda, and it is courtesy of the Afropolitan Mom. Now, Afropolitan Mom wanted this to be like the sweetest drink imaginable. And Martin, I didn't even tell you about this when I was sending the ingredients, but not only did it call for grenadine and carousel and lemonade and Sprite, she also wanted corn syrup and purple sugar garnish.
Oh, good God. Yeah, no, that's too much. So yeah, we're taking some liberties for
Yeah,
sure.
so sorry, Afropolitan Mom, but I would that is like something to get a 7-year-old drunk. All right, so
Not that we here on the unsolicited film reviews would recommend getting 7-year-olds drunk. We should just make that disclaimer right
yes,
now.
no.
All right, so give out the proportions here, Zach, for
All right,
everybody
so
listening and watching at home.
we're gonna do 2 ounces of vodka.
There we go.
Oh yeah, I should turn the camera down. Demonstrate here. All
One.
right, 2 ounces of vodka. Then we got. It calls for 4 ounces of grenadine, so I'm cutting that in half.
Yeah, that's absurd. Nobody needs that much grenadine in any drink.
Yeah,
Yeah, grenadine is basically pure sugar. So
yeah. And shout out to my friend Kevy. When we were like 16 or 17, he used to just drink straight grenadine.
oh my,
I never
how
understood how.
how how could he do that?
I don't know.
Jeez.
Okay, so then we have 2 ounces of blue carousel, and this is supposed to turn the red purple, obviously, because blue and red make purple. And
All right.
it calls for 2 ounces of yeah, it calls for another 2 ounces of lemonade. Like, again, so sweet. So I'm just doing straight fresh lemon juice here, kind of balance out the sweet with with some sour. A couple dashes of that in there. Maybe need a couple more dashes. There you go. And then just a Sprite floater. And I made a sample of this earlier according to the prescribed recipe, and like my face just twisted up into this. Okay, stir that up a little bit.
Oh, I
All right.
forgot my Sprite. Hold on. I gotta go run and grab my Sprite. You keep talking, Zach, and I'm actually
Okay.
gonna turn off my camera briefly. So sorry to the people watching at home, but you don't need to see me running around my house. So
All right. Yeah, I got you, Martin. Go ahead. All right. And while Martin's not looking, I'm probably just gonna add a little bit more vodka because I'm telling you, this is like the sweetest drink ever imaginable. And again, apologies to Afropolitan Mom, but I can't drink just like grape drink.
so how many ounces of Sprite was it supposed to be?
It's just a splash.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, and you stir that shit up.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them in my cocktail shaker here.
Okay, that's still really sweet, but much better than the actual recipe that I got. If you smell it, it smells like a Jolly Rancher,
Oh man.
but it doesn't taste quite as bad. Okay, again, way too sweet, but it has that kind of purple tinge to it for the Heart of Wakanda.
There we go. Yeah, it doesn't quite look purple from people watching on YouTube, but close enough. All right.
All
Oh,
right,
this
cheers,
always
mate.
happens to me.
Oh,
All
you're
right.
still shaking. Oh, okay.
No, I can't get the stupid thing off now because it got
Oh,
cold.
okay.
Oh well, so it had the ice in there, but I won't have it in my actual drink. All right, so let's move on. So hopefully some of you at home can enjoy this. And yeah, we just enjoy trying new different drinks. We hope you guys enjoy tasting new things with us. They're not always going to be winners. Zach's making a very pinched face right now. So yeah, they can't all be first round picks.
Oh, hey,
So
a lot of people like the sweet drinks where you can't even taste the alcohol, and this is one of those. So,
wow, yes, it definitely is. All right, but let's get into the films that Ryan Coogler has made. So
yes,
as we mentioned, he went to USC for film school. And while he was there, he made a couple of shorts. The very first one is a short called Locks. It was made in 2009, and you can actually find it on YouTube. And it is very clearly a first effort from a film student. It's interesting. I mean, there's no dialogue at all, and it is very well made
hmm
for a first effort. I mean, you can see the latent talent right there, but it's very simple. It's very straightforward. And again, it sort of brings in themes of Black experience in and around where he grew up. So it's, you know, a guy walking along with long dreads, seeing others and kind of enjoying the sort of social aspect of seeing people that look like him, but then at the same time being worried about the police because he sees people being arrested by the police. And then at the end, he shaves it all off, and you see that he's done that for his little sister, I assume. There's no dialogue, so we can't tell. Anyway, very interesting start. His next one, a year later.
hold on, because
Oh, sorry.
I did get a chance to watch Locks.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, I thought it was very yeah, it was very film student-y,
Yeah.
but also you can definitely see that there is a talent there, as you said, and it's a very sweet story. It's only 6 minutes long,
hmm
but it's a very easy to follow narrative, and like as you said, no dialogue, which is kind of what you want because you want show don't tell, especially when you're a student filmmaker, because
Yeah.
we're so dialogue driven, especially when we're starting out.
And
So
and also one of the hardest things for starting out filmmakers to get right is the sound. And so
absolutely.
it's actually a smart choice of him not to, because sound on student films can be absolutely horrible.
Yes, yeah, and we know that from experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, and when the credits rolled, I saw that it was Ludwig Göransson. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Pretty amazing.
they've been cross finger tight since day one. I just think that's such an amazing story because both of them are like at the height of their careers right now, and for
Yeah.
just two like film student bros to be that collaborative for that long, yeah,
It's
really
incredible.
cool. So I
And very heartwarming too, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't get a chance to watch the second one just because it wasn't available to me. So you had to like plug your library card in or something
Yeah,
to.
this I found on some totally random site where I used my Toronto Public Library card and it allowed me access to see this thing. So the second one was one called Fig, which came out in 2010. So even just a year later, it's a major level up in
Hmm.
quality. Um, it reminded me a bit of Fruitvale Station in a way, in that it's about somebody who's just trying to make a life and kind of make ends meet and keeps getting ground down by the world around them. Um, it's you know, it refers to it's Figueroa Street, which is in LA, which is known, you know, and for a lot of different things. It's kind of a historic street, but it's also the center of a lot of prostitution
hmm
in South LA, and that's kind of the focus. It's about this mother who's forced, you know, she needs to try to feed her young daughter. She's forced to try to prostitute herself, but in so doing, she ends up losing custody of her. It's a horrible, heartbreaking story,
Mm.
but it's really well made and is just another insight into where he was coming from. Like as I said, telling the stories that were all around him,
How long is
and
it?
it's about 10 minutes, I believe.
Okay, so a little bit longer
Um,
than fit. I mean, a little bit longer than the locks.
yeah, it's a little bit longer. As I said, the quality is definitely improved from Locks, and it actually won a couple of awards for short films. I mean, not major Oscars or anything, but in the California area, and so it started to make a name for himself as this kind of this student filmmaker. And now he did have another one after that that I could not find anywhere, and I can't really find anything about it.
Hmm.
So I'm not quite sure what happened there, but he did have a third short, but I can't really speak to it.
All right. So let's just get into his features then. And his
Yeah.
first one is Fruitvale Station. It came out in 2013 when Coogler was just 27. It's based on a true story and covers the last day of the life of Oscar Grant, a black man who was killed by a white cop in Oakland in 2009. So again, Oakland roots, very very Coogler. And of course it stars Michael B. Jordan, Octavia Spencer, Melanie Diaz, and Chad Michael Murray. It grossed 17 million on a $900,000 budget. Great success.
Mhm.
And it won a ton of indie awards, including the Grand Jury Prize for Drama at Sundance.
Mhm. And the audience award too, I think.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, yeah, dominated Sundance.
I have some specific thoughts, but what was your overall impression of Fruitvale Station?
It's a really good movie. My main impression, well, first of all, just one quick thing. Octavia Spencer, it's kind of impressive that he got her in that movie because she was
Hmm.
just coming off of her Oscar for The Help.
Yeah.
So it's really impressive that he even managed to land her as an actress in that film. And most of the other people in the movie were relative unknowns. Again, Michael B. Jordan, not a star yet at that time. My main takeaway from this movie was that instead of focusing on the crime and the tragedy of the killing of Oscar Grant, is his last name, I think.
Yeah.
Um, Instead, Coogler chose to focus on the life that was lost.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just a very intuitive and smart choice. Uh, Instead of, because, there's all sorts of sort of tragedy porn out there. And especially when you're talking about African American experience in America, right? I mean, it's so obvious. But
Hmm.
instead, I mean, obviously the tragedy is at the heart of the story, but really it's about this guy's life and kind of him going about and trying to make his way in the world and trying to figure out how he could support his family and get back in his good graces with his mom and it just all these things that any normal person goes through on any daily basis and I thought that was, as I said, just a very smart and intuitive choice as a filmmaker for
Yeah, I'm so glad that he was portrayed as a real person
him.
instead
Hmm.
of like just this paragon that just happened to be murdered by the police. Like,
Yeah.
he's a very flawed guy.
Hmm.
He cheats on his girl, he sells weed, he can't hold down a job, but he is also a good Samaritan who helps out the girl in the grocery store and
He tosses away the weed because he's trying to do the right thing and not break his parole and go back to prison and
yeah,
yeah.
he helps out this white girl that's trying to, do the grandma's fish fry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Puts her on the phone with his grandma, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
And he even tries to like have a save the cat moment, but it's actually a try to save the dog moment and fail, which was, very sad. He tries to save that poor dog on the side of the road that winds up dying, but it could be just like a basic slice of life film if not for the obvious ending.
Yeah.
And the family dinner scene I think was my favorite scene of the entire film because it was just so kinetic. It was done with the handheld cam and it felt like you were right there with the family. It felt like as an audience member that you were a member of that family because everybody was just helping out, doing dishes, serving different platters, and all the chit chat back and forth. Yeah, it was just very well done. And going in the ending, so there's just such a sense of foreboding throughout the entire film, which the first two and a half acts would probably be fairly boring if you didn't know how it was going to end, but yeah, it was just
It's a good point you made too about the about that family dinner scene and and the handy cam. I often find the use of handheld cameras in films can be very distracting if it's
Sure.
not done right. And this did make use of it quite a lot, and not once was I distracted.
Mhm.
And I don't know exactly. I couldn't put my finger on exactly why that is because I wasn't even thinking about it at the time. That's how not distracting it was. But it obviously speaks to his quality as a filmmaker that he uses it to tell the story about this person's life rather than as a gimmick, like unfortunately a lot of filmmakers do.
Yeah, 100%. He has such good instincts as a filmmaker, and yeah, like I said, it just makes you feel like you're in there and not like because you're absolutely right. Some people just use handy cams to just be different or just throw in a gimmick. And after he does get shot, I forgot how long the movie goes on after that, and
Mm,
I can see why Octavia Spencer would want this role because it becomes her movie during the entire third act.
yeah, yeah, it really
She
does.
carries the entire thing,
Yeah, because and it makes a lot of sense because we need somebody to carry the pain of what happens,
and she does
and a
such a good
lot of
job of
that
that.
falls on
Yeah,
her character.
yeah,
Yeah. So that was obviously, it's his first feature film, but due to his success at Sundance and other indie awards, that really made his name for himself. And so enough of a name that he was able to talk with Sylvester Stallone and convince him to revive the Rocky franchise in the movie Creed. So Creed came out in 2015, and it really did revive sort of a moribund franchise. The last film, Rocky Balboa, had been 9 years earlier, and I don't think anybody expected there ever to be another Rocky movie again. And it made obviously it was worth it. In just in terms of pure financial terms, it made 175 million worldwide on a 35 million dollar budget, and it also spawned the creation of sort of a new franchise because the next two Creed movies, Creed 2 and Creed 3, made 214 and 276 million respectively. So it's done very well. It's been very commercially successful. In my opinion, it also stars one of Sylvester Stallone's best performances that
yeah,
he ever had. And unsurprisingly, he actually got an Oscar nomination for it. And I remember at the time when this happened that I was kind of hoping he won because I just thought his performance was just imbued with such kind of regret and longing, and it was just an incredible performance. And I think Coogler also did the smart thing by going back to the idea from the original Rocky movie that Creed, for anybody who hasn't seen this movie, you don't know what it's about. It's Apollo Creed's son who, Apollo Creed died before he was born, comes to Philadelphia from LA and wants Rocky to train him to be a fighter. And the end of the movie, Creed doesn't actually win, much like Rocky in the very first movie. And I think that's very smart because much like the first movie, Rocky movie, that's actually not the fight that Creed was
exactly.
fighting.
Yeah, yeah,
So I thought that was a really smart choice. He didn't make it just a sports movie where he comes out on top. It was taking the model of the Rocky movie, which was fantastic and is still fantastic. Very slow moving. If people, in 2005 go back and watch it, if Gen Zers went and watched Rocky, I'm sure they'd find it very
yeah.
boring.
It is really not a boxing movie,
It really isn't. No, no,
honestly.
but it's a great movie.
Yes.
And Coogler took that framework from that movie and transported it into 2025 and added, again, all the themes we've been talking about in terms of the Black experience and just made a very successful, but also, I thought, a very good movie.
Yeah, and I rewatched most of these, and again, Ludwig Göransson. his take, he's kind of like spin-off of the Rocky score, has been in my head since I watched it. Even if I'm like getting out of bed, I'm like a little bit more motivated because that score is in my head. And
Nice.
like it's just it is so good what he did with that. And of course they add like a Future and Meek Mill to add little the hip hop twist on the age-old Rocky story.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, imagine you're Ryan Coogler, and in your second feature, you get to write lines for one of the most iconic characters in
Yeah.
film history. Like that had to be so fucking
That's
cool.
unbelievable. Yeah. And then get that guy an Oscar nomination for those lines. Like,
Yeah,
that's pretty
dude.
incredible.
Yeah, that just shows that he is just a naturally boring filmmaker,
Yeah.
and Creed hits all the right notes while still making a I don't want to say tired, but a very well trod genre still fresh and original. Like at the end of the day, we didn't really know if he was going to win or not, but also we didn't care because he had
Yep.
that emotional journey as
Hmm.
you were talking about. And the chemistry between Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson was amazing in that
Yeah.
film. And that was my first intro to Tessa Thompson, by the way, and she's since become one of my favorite actresses.
She's great. Yeah. Love Tessa Thompson. And just like again, not we don't want to go too long, but just a subtle little thing, as we talked about earlier, he likes to make these people human and
Hmm.
relatable. And Tessa Thompson character, she's a musician, but she has degenerative hearing loss. And that just adds like an extra little bit of, while the Creed character is going through his own struggles and challenges, she obviously also has her own struggles and challenges. And in a way, that's partly what brings them together. And it's just such a smart, as you say, instinctive form of filmmaking to put those two things together.
Yeah, she doesn't drop in as kind of a manic pixie dream girl.
No, no.
She's like I said at the very top. All these characters are so three-dimensional and lived in and well realized. And yeah, Coogler is so good at that. And that was actually one of my favorite character moments of the entire film is the tragedy of a musician that's going through hearing loss.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Obviously explored a totally different movie and not Coogler, but in that movie, Sound
Yeah,
of Metal, which was
yeah.
I thought was incredible.
All right, so on to Black Panther. Coogler's career trajectory is has to be the envy of every aspiring
Yeah,
filmmaker.
just astronomical success climb at this point.
Yeah, it just gets bigger and bigger, not just in scope and budget, but in creative control as well. Because again, this is only his third feature, Black Panther, but he gets primary writing credit and a massive, in a massive Marvel film. Like, it's just wild. And okay. Black Panther came out in 2018 with the late great Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, aka Black Panther. Opposite him is the villain Killmonger, played by, shockingly, Michael B. Jordan. And Martin's holding up his Black Panther. Is that Black Panther or Killmonger?
It's Black Panther. Yeah.
Okay, is
Yeah, for those listening on Spotify or just by audio, I've got a little Funko Pop Black Panther that was given to me actually as a gift by a friend of mine when I was in LA, my friend Chris. So thanks, Chris. Shout out.
So joining the cast are Lupita Nyong'o, Letitia Wright, Daniel Kaluuya, Winston Duke, Angela Bassett, and Andy Serkis, among a host of others. It is the first and only Marvel movie to be nominated for Best Picture. And as was the standard back then, when Marvel was just in its salad days, just printing money, just making it rain all over the goddamn place. Black Panther was a massive critical and box office success, grossing $1.5 billion off of a $200 million budget. Martin, thoughts on Black Panther?
Yeah, I'll just pick up on that budget thing. It overall worldwide, Avengers Infinity War, which was obviously the culmination of everything that the MCU had been doing to that place. Worldwide, Infinity War was the highest grossing movie, but domestically, so in North America, Black Panther actually beat it out. It
Mm-hmm.
was that big of a deal. And it's even as big of a deal as it was commercially. I think it's even a bigger deal in terms of cultural impact.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
It's a very important superhero movie. And just saying that sounds weird, but it's true. I don't think it can be denied. The just all the things about it, the fact that there's an African country that is the most advanced country on earth, and the way in which the movie deals with issues of colonization, but also in terms of the way in which it deals with issues of international help, international aid, um, arms deals, and like all this kind of stuff is tied up in this movie.
Isolationists.
Isolate, yeah, exactly. Isolationism, yep. And closing off your borders and not partaking in, in what's going on in the rest of the world. All those kinds of issues are talked about and dealt with as themes in this movie. And not only that, but it's really fucking entertaining. So, like, I think I've still got it as a top five MCU movie, maybe
Yeah.
top six. Um, but it's yeah, that's my main point on this. Like, it was a massive commercial success and made Ryan Coogler basically unimpeachable in terms of Hollywood. Like, he can walk into any studio anytime he wants after that movie, but it's also a very important movie.
Yeah, and a lot of movies, especially Marvel movies, the villain makes the movie.
Mm,
And we spoke about Thanos in our villains podcast, and probably behind Thanos and Loki, Killmonger is the most the best villain, just because he has the most understandable motivation.
yeah. Yeah, he really does. And but again, he takes different lessons from the same information that some people have. So,
Exactly.
and that's a perfectly reasonable debate to have. You've been kicked around for so long. Do you take that the power that you now have, and what do you do with it? I remember a long time reading a book about somebody who. Yeah, this is a bit of a digression, but I think it's appropriate. Somebody who had been through the Holocaust, and they said the people coming out of the Holocaust, there's two ways of looking at that. There's never again,
Mm.
and there's never again to me.
Oh
And those are
yeah,
two very different perspectives.
for sure.
And the Killmonger perspective in this movie was the never again to me
Right.
perspective. Like, fuck everybody else. I'm in charge now. I'm gonna fuck everybody over. I'm gonna take my revenge because this is never again happening to me. Whereas the Black Panther was the opposite perspective. And that's a great tension set up for a movie.
Yeah, and on the surface, a lot of people dismiss it as kind of like a Hamlet ripoff, or even the Lion King ripoff, because of going back to see your dad in the past and
Yeah, there are some
afterlife or whatever.
themes. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's whatever. But no, yeah, Black Panther is just one of the best Marvel movies and one of the deepest ones with the best thing to say. And so continue on.
Yeah, so we did it again. So the next feature film by Ryan Coogler was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And this was released in 2022. So that's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was post-pandemic, and the movie industry, well, as we just mentioned at the top of this episode, still hasn't got its feet under it yet, and definitely hadn't in 2022. And this was also post Avengers Endgame for the MCU, where it didn't really know what it wanted to do. So it's the lowest rated of his films on IMDb. It's still not bad. It's 6.6 out of 10. I think most filmmakers would take that as their lowest rated movie. It did actually win one Oscar for costume design and was nominated for four others. But the other thing that really hampered it was it was a really hard task from the beginning. I'm sure it must have been writing this movie and everything else after the the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman. He died of cancer, and just to take a moment to say what a blow that was, not only obviously for the Black Panther franchise, because he really couldn't be replaced. I mean, you said that Killmonger was an incredible villain, and he was, but Chadwick Boseman's portrayal of T'Challa went head to head,
Sure.
and that's an impressive feat. But Chadwick Boseman was just such an unbelievable actor, and in terms of importance in film, again, um, here we are, two white guys talking about this, but
Yeah.
I don't think the importance of Chadwick Boseman can be understated. I mean, he played Jackie Robinson in 42.
Yeah.
He played Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. He played James Brown in Get On Up. Like just these iconic, important figures, and Black Panther was amongst them. So for Ryan Coogler having to create a movie around Black Panther when, you know, the Killmonger character had been killed in the last movie, so he wasn't going to be able to come back except in dream sequence in this
But
one.
that's never stopped Marvel before. But I'm
No, it
glad
hasn't.
I'm
But
glad they didn't just resurrect him for the sake of doing
yeah,
it.
yeah. And Chadwick Boseman was no longer there. And from the very beginning, Ryan Coogler was like, yeah, no, we're not recasting him. You cannot recast Chadwick Boseman. And so that was tough. I still think so. It's definitely, I would say, the worst of the five movies that Ryan Coogler has put out. I still think there are some very good things about it, and he made some interesting choices. But from the beginning, that was going to be a tough enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually still haven't seen it, and that's for several.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
that's for several reasons. One obviously is no Chadwick Boseman. Next is I thought it was kind of in bad taste to continue the franchise without its main character.
They do a very good job of paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman, though,
Okay,
in the movie, in the narrative of the movie, paying tribute to T'Challa, but really it's very clear they're paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman.
okay, so yeah, on the surface it just kind of seemed like a money grab, and like they had to do Black Panther 2.
I can see what,
So
yeah, I can see why you said that. Yeah.
and but overall, I had at that point, this is yeah, post Endgame, this is 2022. I had reached Marvel saturation at that point,
Yeah.
and I was just so fatigued, and I just didn't rush out to the theater to see any Marvel fare at that point. So I understand Angela Bassett did a wonderful job, but
She was fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, other than that, I just didn't have any real.
And Lupita Nyong'o was great as she always is.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I just didn't have any like drive to actually go see it.
Fair enough.
And that brings us to his newest movie, and for my money, maybe his best so far.
I would agree.
Martin's busting out his good Delta blues guitar. Here we go. So this is the only one of Coogler's films that he's written, directed, and produced. This is his baby. And since Michael B. Jordan couldn't have a big role in Wakanda Forever, Coogler makes up for it by doubling down on his Michael B. Jordan. Jordan plays identical twins in this one. Also stars Haley Steinfeld, Miles Eaton, Wunmi Mosaku, and Omar Miller. I'd give the synopsis, but honestly, I think the less you know about Sinners, the better. And I think that's why word of mouth has been the major driving force behind the box office success of this movie rather than the trailers, because the trailers don't really tell you anything about what this movie's about.
No,
And
they hint at some things, but
a
you're
little
right.
bit, yeah.
Finally, whoever did the trailers, and maybe this is because Ryan Coogler had such absolute control over this, they didn't give away a movie, which is great.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. So I urge you to go see this in Dolby if you can. Otherwise, IMAX, but this definitely needs to be seen in theaters to get the full experience because it may be the most Dolby friendly movie since Oppenheimer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. And actually, just as an overview, I know we're going to get into spoilers, and we'll tell people who haven't seen it to piss off. Uh, no, just kidding. We love you. Please come back. Uh,
Please, please.
but uh, but this is a movie that sticks with you,
Mm.
and like you walk out of the theater and you're thinking about it. The first thing I did, because I always have my headphones when I'm walking to the theater, not these obviously, and the first thing I did when I walked out was throw on like a playlist of old Delta Blues stuff. You know, all the Robert Johnson, the Sun House, the Lead Belly, like
Mm.
all that, you know, all the greats from back then. That, as you can tell, I'm a big blues fan. So this movie was kind of up my alley, but it really it sticks with you. And I will say, we talked a little bit about the themes that are inherent in Ryan Coogler movies, and there's a lot of that stuff in this movie. But still, and I don't know how many days on now I am from seeing this. I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around all the different themes and what each of the key moments and character choices say about those themes.
Yeah,
And I think that that's a sign of a very intelligent and very well made movie.
100%. Yeah. And I think it'll wind up being nominated for several Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Score, Sound Design, and maybe even Best Supporting Actress.
That's very possible. Yeah. And just before we get too far into it, and we go to the spoilers, something very interesting about this movie is the deal that Coogler made with Warner Brothers to make this. I don't know if you want to talk about that, or you want me to dig into the details on that,
Go ahead.
because I think it's fascinating. So Coogler basically got three things that filmmakers do not get these days. So it just goes to show you the amount of credit he now has in Hollywood. So the first thing he got was Final Cut. On a movie with a $90 million budget, the studio did not have the final say as to what the movie looked like.
Good for him.
And that's big. You know,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that filmmakers like Tarantino and Scorsese get. So that's impressive. The second thing that he got was first dollar gross, which, and what that means is usually filmmakers get percentages of ticket sales only after the studio has recouped their expenses. And but this, where he gets it right off the bat, a percentage right from every ticket that that we bought last weekend. That's again the kind of deal that only super established people like Spielberg get. And the third thing that's very interesting, and Coogler has mentioned was very important to him, is that he gets the copyright back after 25 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So in a movie where he says, one of the themes um, is again about ownership of culture and things like that, he will own this outright
Wow.
when he's 64, which also, makes for not a bad retirement fund. But that means that, if a studio or a streaming service or anything like that wants to do something with it, Warner Brothers will have the right to make any of those deals himself.
Good for him.
And that's just an incredible deal. But again, it shows how much respect this guy has in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, and for this to be only his fifth feature, like God, yeah, that is wild, and I'm so happy for him. I had no idea
Yeah.
that that was one of his stipulations. All right,
And
so
he's under 40 still,
I know, God.
which is making me feel a little old.
All right, so we're gonna get do a little bit of a deep dive into Sinners, but first, thanks for watching and listening. We love you. In our next episode, it's our Cinco de Mayo Spectacular.
Very nice.
We'll be covering 10 films set in Mexico. But for those of you who have seen Sinners, or for you masochists who just get off on spoilers, we're about to get
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
we're about to do a deep dive into the film. This is your one and only warning. Okay, so yeah, Martin, Sinners. What a wild ride.
Yeah, I loved it. At first, it was one of these films that grew on me as the movie went along,
Well, yeah,
and then as I said, after I've walked out of the movie, it just continues to grow on me. I think there is just so much going on in this film, and so many different things that are brought into it as well, different themes, different ideas. And as I mentioned, before we had the spoiler alert, I'm still not totally sure what it says about it all, right? Like, does the decision that, not to jump right to the very end of the movie, but I'm going to do it because fuck it. But the decision that the kid makes, the guitar playing kid, I've forgotten his character's name.
Preacher Boy.
Yeah, Preacher Boy. The decision that he makes at the very end, which also is kind of bookended as the beginning of the movie, where he walks into the church and his father tells him to drop the guitar, and he doesn't. And so I think again maybe that has something to do with not letting go of the black, the sort of the African American black culture,
Oh yeah,
even though by not doing that, they're also taking ownership of all the pain and heartache that went into it. Um, and so that's what I'm getting out of it as kind of the final, because the end, and then it jumps forward in time,
yeah.
and the ending I think is fucking amazing because it jumps forward in time to the 80s or 90s, and it's Preacher Boy as an old man, and the fact that Preacher Boy as an old man is played by Buddy Guy, I think is
I
just
loved that. Yeah.
unbelievable. Because for anybody who doesn't know, Buddy Guy is basically the only one left of the sort of old guard of blues musicians.
Yeah, like the Muddy Waters and
Yeah,
the BB Kings and yeah.
yeah. Like he started out early days with like him and Sonny Terry, and it's just he's one of those guys, right?
Yeah, the fact
Not quite as old as what they're talking about in the movie,
oh yeah.
which is more like Robert Johnson's time.
Yeah.
But in 2025, he's basically the old. Like I think he's 88 or something. I saw him 2 years ago in concert.
Oh, did you? Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
he still tours. He's amazing. Most of his concert is, well, not most. I'd say about half. He obviously plays, but half is just him shooting the shit and being a character and telling stories from the old days, which
Well,
I
I
love
mean,
just as much actually.
yeah, that's what you expect from those old blues guys,
Yeah.
Like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, I think that ending, not only was it great, but that's what I took out of it thematically. I don't know if that's, and obviously, leaves scars. And in this case, in the movie, literal scars across his face.
Now, did you say till the very end?
Yes. To both the mid and
Okay.
end credit scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so many people left the theater and I was like, "Hold up. I know this isn't a Marvel movie, but y'all gotta stay." But
Oh,
yeah,
if
there's
people missed that mid credit scene because that's the one with Buddy Guy. They missed a
yeah,
whole lot of very important stuff.
I know exactly. So yeah, there's no hint that it's a vampire movie except for the little intercut jump scares at the very beginning when Preacher
Yeah.
Boy walks into the church,
Yeah.
and the entire first half of the movie is just like these two twins, trying to overcome the Jim Crow South,
hmm
and I guess it's implied that they stole a bunch of money from Al Capone, but
Yeah, and as you pointed out with Fruitvale Station, these are flawed individuals. Like
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
these aren't heroes, right? Like these are guys who have made their way in the world by robbing, killing, and stealing. And even within the first couple of scenes, one of them, one of the Michael B. Jordans, is shooting a guy in the knees just to prove basically that he can and he's a badass. So yeah, these aren't good guys, but they're still the
Anti-heroes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but they're very real people that way. They're
Sure.
people who are trying to make their way, and this is the world. This is the hand they've been dealt, right?
And we're definitely rooting for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it again to figure out which one is Smoke and which one is Stack because that
I did get a bit confused of that sometimes. Yeah, like
which is understandable. I
I think
mean,
Smoke was the one wearing the more tweedish jacket, whereas Stack was wearing the fancier suit. I could be wrong on that, but anyway, it's
yeah, but anyway, yeah, and dude, the score is
yeah.
Ludwig is gonna win another Oscar probably.
I would he definitely better be nominated because especially in that part where it talks about this happens early in the movie, but it's actually at the very beginning. There's a voiceover talking about how there's a legend that people who play so well that they can bring the spirits not
Mm.
only of the dead but spirits of the future. And then there's this scene in the middle of the movie when the juke joint is just hopping and just going off, and the all these people are these spirits are popping up, and some of them are from Africa, and some of them are from the ancestors, and some of them are current, and some of them are Spanish flamenco or whatever, right? And then some of them are from the future, and there's a DJ, and the way that Göransson melds all those musical styles
Oh
in that
man.
scene, you're right, is fucking spectacular.
That was my favorite scene of the entire film, especially seeing it in Dolby where like it was like the pulsating the beat and how the African spiritualism was able to meld with like almost like a Jimi Hendrix type, and then the DJ came in and started spinning the tracks, and yeah, with the 1930s Delta blues,
Yeah.
it was just like so like right up my alley. And I was just like I was so blown away by that scene in particular, and yeah, and the fact that it's some like some Nordic Swedish white guy putting that shit together is just
Yeah, he's a musical genius. There's
yeah,
no doubt about it.
it really really is.
What did you think about again jumping to the end because I think this is a lot of where the themes paid off. What did you think of the almost Tarantino-esque way that the clan kind of made their appearance just at the very end of the movie and then he dispatches them like almost immediately? What did you think of that scene?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna ask that question, and while it is kind of tonally different from the rest of the film,
Hmm.
I'm always for KKK guys getting their comeuppance. You know, like it was very satisfying.
It was.
Whether it had much to do with the story, I'm not quite sure, but it was planted at the very beginning.
It
To
was.
at least it wasn't just like a whole bunch of clan guys swarmed in at the very last second. So there were hints of those the landowner selling the two twins the barn, and that he was going to bring his boys back at some point. But I mean, I was there for it. It was satisfying.
Yeah, I guess thematically the way it ties in is in terms of this idea of okay, it's the white clan guys being like, okay, you can have this for a bit,
Hmm.
but this isn't yours. This isn't your own, and we're taking it back. But at the end of the movie, the the character stands up and basically says, no, fuck you, we have this. And then at the very very end of the movie, in that scene with Buddy Guy, it's like, you know, it was worth it because we had it even for just that one night. And
Okay,
and I
yeah.
guess that's part of it, right? It's the resistance to that thinking, the resistance to just, oh no, no, that's not really yours. And he's saying, no, no, this was ours. And I guess that's how it ties in thematically.
Hmm.
Although I agree, tonally it seemed a bit jarring at the time.
Mm. But also, it wasn't just the Delta blues, African spiritualism. There was also like a little dash of Irish folklore in there as well.
Hmm.
because the head vampire, the entire thing was an Irish immigrant,
Yeah.
and they were kind of doing Irish songs and Irish jigs. So yeah, it and
Again,
that
Göransson just bringing in music from everywhere and making it seamless. Really.
and that added to my like walking out of the theater experience. Like, okay, there's so many different. Okay, so there's African spiritualism, there's the Delta blues, there's Irish folklore, but if it makes you think when you're walking out, and like I'm still marinating, and I've seen it. It
Yeah.
was like 5 days ago now, and I'm definitely gonna have to see it again. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those movies that just leaves you like, wow, that had something to say, and it didn't beat you over the head with a message in any way, shape, or form. But it was just like, okay, yeah, that that was a great film.
Yeah, I really think so. And you mentioned earlier that you think it might be Ryan Coogler's best movie to date. And with each passing day, I think I'm kind of in agreement with you. It's a very, very good, very interesting film.
And the more I think about this particular aspect, I think definitely the best vampire film ever.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because it's not, I mean, it is a vampire movie, obviously, but it looks at vampirism in a totally different way. In this movie, vampirism is a way to escape the troubles of the world,
Hmm.
which I don't recall that ever being sort of a theme of vampire movies before. And but it's the easy way out in this
Yeah.
movie. And it's the main characters who are saying, no, fuck you. I'm not taking that easy way out. I'm holding firm to who I am, my culture, my beliefs. And even if that means accepting all the pain that goes with it in the crazy, messed up world that we're in.
Yeah, because
And yeah, so for a vampire movie, you're right. I've never seen that explored really.
and the thing is, I like that all the traditional rules apply. Okay, garlic repels them, needs silver
Yeah,
bullets.
yeah,
Like
the wooden stakes. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So we're just like,
which
okay.
Robert Eggers would have a have a quibble with, but anyway.
But yeah, so like that one big black girl is just like, okay, we're setting down the rules right here. We get it out of the way in like 30 seconds, and then we're back into the movie. So
Yeah,
it's like I love that, like it was such an original take on vampires, but at the same time we're familiar with all the rules because it's all about characters and theme
yeah.
and all that.
Yeah,
But
and that all comes naturally. It's not like she suddenly just knows a lot about vampires. It's set up from the very beginning that she's sort of this woman who's into the occult and doing
yep.
all these kind of spiritual healings and stuff. So of course she would know about these kind of mythical figures as well. Anyway, yeah, we could probably go on forever talking about this, and obviously anybody who's still listening has probably not seen probably has seen it, and so they might be interested in this. But we should probably cut this short.
Yeah, we're getting into our just going back and forth like if we were at a bar talking about
Exactly.
it.
How this podcast started.
But yeah, it should be said that we both have this as one of the front runners for Best Picture.
At this point, yeah, I mean it's really early in the season though, so I don't actually think when the year comes to an end that this will be a front runner, but I think you're right that it deserves a few nominations.
All right, yeah, okay. So, thanks for watching and listening, everybody. Be sure to check out our YouTube page. We're still on Spotify. Martin's busting out the old axe and gonna play us out some Delta Blues. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Zach Miller, playing the guitar on there as Martin Cook. And be sure to check out our Cinco de Mayo Especial.
Bye everyone.